I never wanted to come back to the house on Langley Street. It wasn't mine, not really. It belonged to my great-uncle Martin, a man I'd only met once when I was a child. He passed away in late 2022, and in his will, he left the property to me, the only surviving kin who still carries the family name. The house itself wasn't remarkable from the outside. 2 stories, red brick half covered in ivy, sagging wooden shutters that rattled in the wind. What struck me most, even on that first day, was how quiet the neighborhood was. No children on bikes, no dogs barking, not even the hum of passing cars. It was as if the whole street held its breath. Inside, the air smelled like paper gone brittle with age, like the pages of forgotten books. The furniture was heavy and dated. Curtains blocked most of the light, and everywhere I turned, I found dust, cobwebs, and silence. But there was one feature of the house that seemed wrong. The upstairs bedroom at the far end of the hall had a single window that faced the street. Unlike the others, this one wasn't grimy or cracked. Its glass was immaculate, as though someone cleaned it daily. The frame was painted a deep, polished black instead of the chipped white of the others. When I looked through it, I paused. The street outside didn't look quite the same. The houses appeared cleaner, newer somehow. A bright blue car sat parked across the road, though when I'd arrived earlier, no such car had been there. A woman walked by holding a child's hand, dressed in clothes that seemed just slightly out of step with current fashion, like something from a thrift store rack. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. The street was empty. No car, no woman, just the still, breathless silence I'd noticed before. I told myself it was jet lag, fatigue, or maybe my brain adjusting to the gloom of the old house. But something about that window stayed in my mind long after I unpacked my bags and tried to sleep. That night, I woke to the sound of glass tapping. I sat up in bed, ears straining. It was faint but steady tap. Tap, tap, like fingernails against a pane. I followed the sound down the hallway to that far bedroom. The door was ajar. Inside, moonlight painted the floor in a pale rectangle beneath the strange black-framed window. The tapping came from there, though, and nothing touched the glass. But when I looked through it, my stomach dropped. The street was not the same. Snow blanketed the lawns and driveways, though it was mid-April and unseasonably warm outside. A calendar in my head screamed that it wasn't right, and yet there was white, endless, silent snow. Across the road, the same blue car sat buried up to its tires. The houses wore fresh coats of paint. A street lamp glowed that I knew for certain had been rusted and broken earlier. And in the snow, footprints. They led on my walkway. They stopped at the base of my steps. And then they were gone. The tapping grew louder. I leaned closer to the glass, heart hammering, searching for the source. That was when I realized it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the inside of the glass. From the other side of the window, I staggered back, breath sharp and ragged. The sound stopped. The snow was gone. The blue car was gone. The footprints vanished. All that remained was the empty street of Langley, still and suffocating in its silence. I told myself I was imagining things. Stress, exhaustion, grief. Whatever it was, I shut the bedroom door tight and tried to forget. But the truth is, from that night on, I could never quite shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not from within the house, but from that window. Something or someone was on the other side of it, watching me, waiting, and I knew deep down this was only the beginning. By the second week, The window had become an obsession. I tried to avoid it, but every day, some part of me needed to look. Needed to check if what I saw the first night had been real. At first, it showed ordinary scenes of the neighborhood, but little things were always off. The mailbox across the street had a fresh coat of paint. A tree that had been struck by lightning years ago stood whole again. And once, I swear I saw children playing hopscotch on the sidewalk. Children I knew didn't exist because I'd asked around, and the few neighbors who would speak to me insisted no kids lived nearby anymore. I started writing it all down in a notebook. Dates, times, what I saw. But the strangest moment came on a rainy afternoon. The window showed no rain. The street outside, it was dry, washed in pale sunlight. And in that light, standing in the middle of the road, was a woman. She wore a heavy wool coat, buttoned up to her chin. Her hair was long, dark, parted down the middle. She didn't move, didn't even seem to breathe. She just stared directly at the window, directly at me. I froze, notebook in hand, too afraid to blink. I remember thinking irrationally, if I look away, she'll move closer. The woman tilted her head, slowly, like an animal trying to understand what it's looking at. Her lips moved, soundlessly, and then she raised one hand, pale and stiff, and pressed it against her side of the glass. I swear I felt the cold of it seep into the room. I ran. I didn't go back until the next morning, when the rain had stopped and the real street outside matched what I saw from the other windows. But when I forced myself to look again through the black frame glass, she was gone. Only the empty street remained. That night, I dreamed of her. She stood outside my bedroom, her hand pressed flat against the glass of that window, whispering words I couldn't hear, but somehow understood. She wanted me to open it. No, not just open it. She wanted me to step through. I woke drenched in sweat, my throat raw as though I'd been screaming. The next day, I boarded up the door to that bedroom. But even with wood and nails sealing it shut, I could still hear faint tapping from the other side. Uncle Martin had left behind very little in the way of personal belongings. Most of his furniture was older than I was. His bookshelves contained mostly dust and water-stained encyclopedias. But while clearing out the basement, I found a box tucked behind a stack of rotting newspapers. Inside was a leather-bound journal. His handwriting was cramped, shaky, barely legible in places. The entries were obsessive, repeating the same words and phrases over and over. The window shows the truth. The dates don't match. She is patient. She waits. The earliest entry was dated 1996. He wrote about moving into the house, about the black-framed window that didn't belong to any carpenter's work he knew of, about how it showed what tomorrow would not bring, but what next year already remembers. The first sighting of the woman appeared in 2001. He described her exactly as I had seen her. The coat, the parted hair, the pale hand against the glass. And then came the warnings. Do not look too long. Do not open the window. If she knocks, do not answer. One entry chilled me more than all the others. The window is not a window. It is a door. Every door eventually opens. I slammed the journal shut and shoved it back in the box, heart racing. But I couldn't unknow what I'd read. That night, the knocking started again. Not tapping this time. Knocking. 3 slow, deliberate raps against the glass. I lay awake, counting each one, tears stinging my eyes. And though I never left my bed, I knew beyond doubt, that if I had gone to the window, she would have been there, waiting. Days bled into weeks. My notes became frantic, desperate. The things I saw through the window no longer matched any possible reality. Snow in July. Fireworks on a day when no holiday existed. Faces I didn't recognize staring out from windows across the street. And then, one morning, something impossible happened. I woke to find the entire neighborhood outside my window was gone. Not empty, not destroyed, just gone. In its place stretched a wasteland of dead trees and black soil, like some apocalypse had swept through. The sky was a rotting orange. No sound, no wind, just the endless hush of nothing. And in the center of it, that woman stood again. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Figures moved behind her, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Their shapes blurred, indistinct, as though the glass itself couldn't quite hold them. But they all faced me, all pressed their hands against their side of the window, all waiting. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair, my heart rattling in my chest like loose nails in a jar. The journal's words came back to me. Every door eventually opens. The next entry I read that night made my blood run cold. She showed me the year after next. Then the year after that. There are fewer people each time. I think she is taking them, one by one, year by year, until only she remains. And scrawled beneath it, barely legible. If you see this, it's already too late. The final weeks in that house are a blur of sleepless nights and fraying sanity. The knocking never stopped. Sometimes it was gentle, coaxing. Other times it rattled the very glass, demanding. The visions grew clearer, sharper. I no longer saw only the future. I saw myself. At first, it was small glimpses, me standing at the sink, washing dishes I hadn't dirted yet. Me opening a letter I hadn't received. But then I saw things I could not explain. Me standing at the window, on her side of the glass. Me pressing my pale hand against it, lips moving in silent words, staring back at myself. The line between now and next year, between inside and outside, blurred until I could no longer tell which side was real. On my last night in the house, I woke to silence. No knocking, no tapping, only a low hum, like the vibration of something vast and ancient shifting beneath the earth. Drawn against my will, I went to the boarded-up bedroom door. The boards were split, rotting, as if years had passed in a single night. And the window was open. The cold poured through it, sharp as knives. On the other side stood the woman, closer than ever. Her face was pale and hollow, her eyes two pits of endless black. She raised her hand, palm outstretched. Behind her, the wasteland stretched into forever. And in that wasteland, I saw myself again, waiting, watching, beckoning me forward. I don't remember stepping through. I only remember the sound of the glass closing behind me and the unbearable silence that followed. If you're reading this, if you ever find yourself in the house on Langley Street, do not look through the black-framed window at the end of the hall. Because if you do, she will see you. And once she has seen you, she will never stop waiting. Not this year, not the next, but eventually. And when that time comes, she will open the door, and you will step through, just like I did.